All right, let's go. Try it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Bad Paramahansa Padavijikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Padavijikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gītā ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta-vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All right. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 22nd day of December 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad-gītā as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 18 entitled The Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. Text number 63 on page 702. Itite Jnanam Akyatam Guyad Guyataram Maya Vimishyatad Asheshena Yatechasi Tatakuru. Page 702. I'm sorry? Oh, okay, yeah, there's another version. There's only 2 books like that. So I think you're safe. Yeah, try 7.2. If that doesn't work, try 709. Text 63 of chapter 18. Here we go. Itite jnanamakyatam guyad guyataram maya vimishyatadasheshena yatechasi tathakuru. Iti te jnanamakyatam Guyad guyataram maya vimishyaya tadasheshena yatechi siddhatakuru iti te jnanamakyatam guyad guyataram maya vimishyaya tadasheshena yatechi siddhatakuru iti te jnanamakyatam guyad guyatadam maya vimishyaya tadasheshena yatechi siddhatakuru iti te jnanamakyatam guyad guyatadam maya vimishyaya tadasheshena yatechi siddhatakuru iti te jnanamakyatam guyad guyatadam maya vimishyaya tadasheshena yatechi siddhatakuru iti te jnanamakyatam guyad guyatadam maya vimishyaya tadasheshena yatechi siddhatakuru. Zoomland.
Iti te jnanam akyatam.
Iti te jnanam akyatam.
Guhyat guhyataram maya.
Guyad guyataram maya.
Vimrishyaitat asheshena.
Vimishyaya tadasheshena.
Jate chasi tata kuru.
Yatechi siddhatakuru. Anyone else?
Iti te jnanam akyatam.
Iti te jnanam akyatam.
Guhyad guhyataram maya.
Guyad guyatadam maya.
Vimrishyaitat asheshena.
Vimishyaya tadasheshena.
Yatecha siddhatakuru.
Yatechi siddhatakuru.
Iti te jnanam akyatam.
Iti te jnanam akyatam.
Guhyad guyataram maya.
Guyad guyatadam maya.
Vimishyaya tadasheshena.
Vimishyaya tadasheshena.
Yatechi siddhatakuru.
Yatechi siddhatakuru. Iti thus te unto you, jnanam knowledge, akyatam described, guyat then confidential, guyatadam still more confidential, maya by me, vimrishya deliberating, etat on this, asheshena fully, yata as excuse me, yata as ichasi you like, tata that kuru perform. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, thus I have explained to you knowledge still more confidential. Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. Purport. The Lord has already explained to Arjuna the knowledge of Brahma Bhuta. One who is in the Brahma Bhuta condition is joyful. He never laments, nor does he desire anything. That is due to confidential knowledge. Krishna also discloses knowledge of the Supersoul. This is also Brahman knowledge, knowledge of Brahman, but it is superior. Here the words Yatejasi Tathakuru, as you like you may act, indicate that God does not interfere with the little independence of the living entity. In the Bhagavad-gītā, the Lord has explained in all respects how one can elevate his living condition. The best advice imparted to Arjuna is to surrender unto the Supersoul seated within his heart. By right discrimination, one should agree to act according to the order of the Supersoul. That will help one become situated constantly in Krishna consciousness, the highest perfectional stage of life, of human life. Arjuna is being directly ordered by the Personality of Godhead to fight. Surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is in the best interest of the living entities. It is not for the interest of the Supreme. Before surrendering, one is free to deliberate on this subject as far as the intelligence goes. That is the best way to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such instruction comes also through the spiritual master, the bona fide representative of Krishna. I think we read this one. All right, let's go on to the next one. Sarvaguryatamam bhuya Shunume padamam vachaha Istosime junamiti Tato vakshami te hitam. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you my supreme instruction, the most confidential knowledge of all. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. The Lord has given Arjuna knowledge that is confidential, knowledge of Brahman, and still more confidential, knowledge of the Supersoul within everyone's heart. And now he is giving the most confidential part of knowledge. Just surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the end of the 9th chapter, he has said, Man manaha, just always think of me. The same instruction is repeated here, that will be in the next verse, to stress the essence of the teachings of the Bhagavad-gītā. This essence is not understood by a common man, but by one who is actually very dear to Krishna, a pure devotee of Krishna. This is the most important instruction in all Vedic literature. I'm going to read that again. This is the most important instruction in all the Vedic literature. What Krishna is saying in this connection is the most essential part of knowledge, and it should be carried out not only by Arjuna, but by all living entities. Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, we read these two verses, and the first one has two main points in it, and that is that Krishna is speaking more and more confidential knowledge as this chapter goes on. He's about to end his instruction to Arjuna. And it turns out that the most confidential knowledge is the most simple. Just surrender to Krishna. Think of him, surrender to him, become his devotee, offer homage to him. We'll read that in the next verse. Krishna went into, as I mentioned last time, into the third person. You remember text number 61. Ishvara savabhutanam brideshedana tishtati brahmayan savabhutana yantarudani maya. That the Lord is present in everyone's heart as the controller, as the Ishvara, the Supreme Lord. And brahmayan savabhutani yantarudani maya. And in that body, which the Lord is situated, it's like a machine, that body, yantra, arurani maya. And we're mounted on that machine, we're riding on that machine as a spirit soul. And we're wandering all over the place, in different bodies, different stations, different universes. And we don't know it, we forget. As soon as we go to a new body, we forget everything. It may be a human body, it may be a demigod body, it may be an ant's body. But the last body is we're completely unaware. So this has been going on since time immemorial. This body is provided by nature, material energy, under the direction of Krishna. Maya jakshena pakati suyate sacharasanam. Back in the 9th chapter, this very important verse, that Maya, this material energy, is creating everything under my supervision. She's acting under my control. There's nothing automatic about it. There's intelligence at every step. And so we're always under Krishna's control, but we don't realize it. We don't understand that. We're having this illusion that we're independent, that we're the doers. Krishna describes that in the 3rd chapter. Pakate kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma kartahamadi manyahe. Ahankara vimudhatma. When you're bewildered by the ahankar, which literally means I'm the doer. That's the name of the false ego. That's the main characteristic of it. One thinks I'm doing everything, and I'm progressively able to control nature. This is the illusion of modern technological society. We have the way that we think we're going to control the weather and so forth. But obviously, we're not in control. We are under control. We're not in control. So, then in 62, surrender unto Him, that Ishvara in the heart, who is the Supersoul. Tat prasadat param shanti, and I mentioned this yesterday, and then you will get supreme peace. You see, but that Ishvara is none other than Krishna Himself, as He's already said in the 15th chapter. And now he has this key verse and this key phrase, Yatejasi tatakuru, is that I've spoken the whole Gita to you. Now you deliberate on it, and then you act on. You decide what to do. I'm not going to coerce you. Yata ichasi, as you like, you do. So this is this minute independence that the living entity has. Now, that independence is manifested in different stages. When you're in a lower animal's body, what independence do you really have? It depends on your intellect. But that's the unique quality of the human form, is that we have the higher intelligence, and we don't have to obey the demands of the lower self all the time. We can develop a sense of morality, ethics, or understanding according to Bhagavad Gita, and can control the lower self by the higher self. So that ichasi, that desire, that means as you want, that is in flux according to how we associate with the modes of nature, what knowledge we get, what we're accepting as an authority. All of these different things go into that. So that minute independence is there, especially in the human form. And then he's saying, now listen to me. I'm going to reveal to you the most confidential of all. In other words, the one that's really leads to the highest goal that you can achieve. And why is he saying this? Because you are my very dear friend. See, here now you're getting to what bhakti is all about. It's not just a question of calculating, okay, what's my best interest? Well, I want to get rid of all these miseries, birth, old age, disease, and death. And therefore, I'm going to practice yoga and transcend the demands of the body and so like that. And if it's necessary to serve God to do that, then I'll do that. But there's still that real desire, that I want to get free of miseries. That's a personal desire, which is an important impetus. It takes us a certain distance, but it doesn't take us all the way back to Goloka Vrindavan. It doesn't take us all the way back to the lotus feet of Krishna. It doesn't give prema, because that's not what you want. You want liberation. So so this idea, very dear friend. Now that's a personal relationship, but we're all Krishna's very dear friend. But we're denying that friendship. We're denying even the existence of God to the most extent. So Krishna is saying, because Arjuna, you are my very dear friend, I'm going to speak to you the most confidential knowledge. And we can also realize Krishna's friendship if we follow in the footsteps of Arjuna. And we surrender to Krishna in the mood of absolute dependence, following the 6 principles of surrender. What are they? It says, Anukulena sankalpa pratikulya savarjanam, rakshishititi vishraso, goptadvevadanang tata, atmanakshepta karpanye, atmanakshepta karpanye, shadanagati. These 6 symptoms of sharanagati. Accepting what is favorable for devotional service and rejecting what is unfavorable. Those 2 alone are very significant, essential first steps. And they continue as you go along the path of bhakti yoga. You have to say, well, now I'm really ready to give up this thing that I wanted to do, for a while. I say that this is an impediment. I want to take a step forward. So you give up A, B, C, and D, but E is a little difficult. But you can still practice, get the spiritual strength. Okay, now I've given up B. Well, let's look at F. F is tough. That's how it goes. And then at the same time, you're getting that strength by accepting more those things which are favorable. So accepting things favorable, giving up things unfavorable, that's essential to the process. Then, Rakshasatiti Vishwaso, being confident that Krishna will protect. When you read the Krishna book, in Vrindavan Leela, it's recounting what went on in Boma Vrindavan 5,000 years ago. And you had all these demons coming, and Krishna was protecting. Now, because there's such an intimate relationship, Yogamaya is covering the knowledge that Krishna is actually God. Well, maybe he's a very powerful, demigod. He's come to protect us, whatever, But the dangers come, whether it's a Gasura, Bakasura, this Asura, that Asura. And what do? They always take shelter of Krishna. The Kaliya, dancing on Kaliya pastime is so rich. And Kaliya was threatening Vrindavan, but more importantly, he was threatening Krishna. Right? He was in that lake of the Yamuna, and he was giving poison, everywhere, very powerful poison. The birds would fall in the water and everything. So Krishna challenges Kaliya. He jumps into the water, and then he's captured by the snake. He's captured in one of the coils of the snake, and all the residents come, and they come to the bank. Mother Yashoda, they want to go into the water to save Krishna, even though it's a suicide mission because it's tremendous poison. Balaram doesn't let them go in. He knows that nothing can happen to Krishna. But they're feeling, devastated, not because of some danger to themselves, because of the danger to Krishna. So he's engineering this whole thing. So you know the story. We told it recently. Of course, eventually, just when they're at the point of expiring from agony of seeing Krishna being destroyed, he breaks out of the coils, jumps onto the hoods, and he starts this wonderful dance. And the Gandharvas are singing, and the music is playing, and the flower petals are falling. And there's one esoteric detail that is not in the 10th canto, and that all of the different meters of Sanskrit, you've heard me chant a few of those. I have a file, by the way, if anyone's interested. It's about Chanda, which is Sanskrit meter, and it's got literally the explanation of hundreds of meters. We know there's about 2 dozen maybe in the Bhagavatam that are used. So, but all of those meters were created when Krishna was dancing on those hoods. That's the origin of all the different Sanskrit meters. So a wonderful display of dancing. And then he comes out of the lake. He's dressed in gorgeous raiment and everything. And Kaliya was reformed. He surrendered eventually, and he gave him, I think, the Kaustubha gem at that time, and he had this whole little palace underneath the water there. So the whole thing goes on, and then so by the time the whole thing is over, it's late. So they take rest right on the bank of the Yamuna. And then a big forest fire comes up, threatening to devour everyone. So what do? They call out to Krishna. This is Rakshasatiti Vishwaso. This is all they know. When Indra is throwing down the rains and the thunderbolts and the wind and tornadoes, Krishna, save us, you see. This is Rakshasatiti Vishwaso. But Maya is, we got it covered. We have all of our devices and things to build stronger buildings so that the earthquake comes and won't. Illusion. There's no protection. And of course, personally, everybody is taken off the stage individually. There's no protection against that. This is called, in the beginning of the 2nd canto, fallible soldiers. What is that? Deha patikadatradish atmasainyushu asatsu. Asatsu means sainya means soldiers, and asatsu means fallible. That they can't really help you. This is the whole illusion in material life. We have the defense, and we have the guns, and we have the different kinds of insurance in case something happens, and we have so we're good. I got everything. Got the big bank account. It's just folly. It's nothing but Maya. It's illusion. So who is the infallible soldier? Krishna. He's the only one who can protect us. And it's not that he's going to, this body eventually will go, but what will be your state of consciousness at that time? If you've actually developed your Krishna consciousness, you can die in a very serene and peaceful way. Imagine that. I've seen people die. I used to work in a hospital. Yeah, their most terrifying experience. Now, most of them are sedated by that time, you know. So many of the nurses and the other attendants, they don't see the reactions when they see the dogs coming and Yamaraja's dutas, you know, mercenary coming at them. But there's actually something officially called the terminal restlessness. And they just think they're experiencing hallucinations, you know, so they give them some heavy drugs, you know, like, and then you die completely unconscious. It's horrible. But devotees, we've seen, can die very serenely. We said a year and a half ago or so, we had the Shamali left, or maybe 2 years. I think it was just. And her father was saying it when at the end there, she was just, it was like she was just waiting. They were just coming, and she just got on. You know, she could see that there was no anxiety there. I mean, what could be more valuable than that? You may be a big multi-billionaire, but it doesn't do you any good. Mrityu sarva harashtam. Prabhupada would always quote that in the 10th chapter. If you don't believe in God during the life, you will believe in God at death, the all-powerful death. The atheists see him in the form of death. Takes everything away. Everything you've worked your whole life, you know, beginning with the body and, you know, the money. It's all gone. And then the destiny is very painful, you know. So that's what it's all about. That's the final exam. There's right at the beginning of the second canto, again, Shukadev's first instructions to Parikshit. Parikshit asks, what should one hear as death approaches? What should one think about? Key question. So first he praises the question. That question is good not just for you, but for the speaker, the listener, and those who can hear. It's good for humanity at large. So after a few verses, he describes that essentially you should always hear and chant and worship the Lord. Tasmad bharata sarvatma bhagavan ishvaro hari shrotavyak kirtitavyascha smartavyak chechitabayam. For those who want fearlessness at the time of death, one should always hear, chant, and remember about the Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, Hari, Bhagavan. There's no question who he's talking about. He just has 3 or 4 words. And then the next verse is, Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Parinishthaya Nishtaya Janmalabhak Parang Pungsam Ante Narayana Smriti. It's right there. The Bhagavatam really begins again at the beginning of the second canto. The whole first canto is an introduction, how it came about to be written. There's many important instructions, no doubt. But again, we have Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, beginning of the second canto, and Shukadev begins to speak. So here's his full instruction. If you only get like 6 or 7 verses into the Bhagavatam, you'll get the full lesson. It says, whatever you do in terms of Sankhya or yoga or practicing your Swadharma within Varnashram system, the success of your birth, of your human birth, will be if you can remember Narayan, Krishna, at the time of death. Ante Narayana Smriti. It's a nice phrase to remember. All that we do in Krishna consciousness is leading up to that point, so we can be fully Krishna conscious. Now we should come to the point of always remembering Krishna during this lifetime. Then death may come at any time. You know, earthquake, atom bomb, who knows what, COVID. You'll be ready for it. And you'll know death is an illusion. You don't die. The body dies, but if you're confident that you're going back to Godhead, what's the problem? So getting that constant remembrance is what it's all about. So that's what the most confidential knowledge is. And here he's saying, because you're my dear friend, for your benefit, I'm saying this, and that will come up in the next verse, which is a key verse, and we should move on to that one now, unless there's any comment, because this is really the essence of the whole thing. You got a mic there? There are mics everywhere. You got one.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, we got one local here. Then we'll answer. Okay.
Yes, I can wait. No problem.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. So, it seems that it's very simple, but of just like surrendering onto Krishna. He makes it seem so simple, but what does even surrendering look like? What does it feel like? What is it? What are we doing when we're surrendering? So what is surrender?
So surrender means you don't have your. I was going through the different elements. I didn't go through them all. So accepting everything favorable and rejecting everything unfavorable. Now that is no mystery. You know, we have a list. So that's the first thing. Then really depending on Krishna for protection. Now that doesn't mean that we don't, you know, like I'm always wondering if you're warm enough in the morning. So that's protection against the cold, you know. In other words, we take care of the tool that we're using, this body we're riding on as a machine. This is our machine by which we can serve Krishna. So it should be, you know, protected and kept healthy like that. That's also right there in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, where he says, Kamasinindriyapriti labo jivati yavata. Labo jivati yavata means one should satisfy one's senses as much as is necessary to keep body and soul together and lead a healthy life. In other words, not we don't eat, you know. We like to, we eat, and we eat food that's offered to Krishna, prepared with love, so it's palatable. That's not Maya. Prabhupada loves to honor prasadam. You know, you can see. So the point is that surrender means that you're confident in Krishna's protection and his maintenance. You may have heard this phrase, Yoga Kshema Vahamyaham. Krishna says in the 8th chapter that for one who is always thinking of me, I provide what he needs and I preserve what he has, I provide what he needs. There's a phrase, yoga and shema. Now yoga has different meanings. In this case it means the things that we need to connect with in order to maintain our body and soul together, the necessities of life. And shema is the security. You may have what you have, but if you know it's threatened all the time, then you're not secure, you're not peaceful. So both of those are necessary. And Krishna says, I supply it for my devotees. So if we're confident, this is Rakshasati and Goptit Vevadanantata. Goptit Ve means supplying your necessities of life. You read some of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, Shira Pandit, Shivas Thakur, part of the Panchatattva, very intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya. So I was reading, I think it's in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, how Lord Chaitanya says, Srivas, you're not working to maintain your family. He has a whole family, you know. You don't go out. How are you going to live? He says, I'm just relying on the Lord, you know, if whatever he provides. And so far he has. He's such an intimate devotee. Now that doesn't mean that, you know, that householders should immediately give up their jobs or anything. But the point was he actually reached that point where he really just depended on Krishna. And Prabhupada perfectly exemplified that. Comes to America with nothing, you know, 6 rupees or whatever it was, you know. He sold, well, how much? 40 rupees. Oh, sorry. Okay. So he was much more wealthy than I thought. He was like 40 rupees. At that time, a rupee was like 12 cents, you know. So that's that become $5. Anyway, he basically had nothing, and but he had Krishna. He just relied on Krishna. And eventually he had, you know, it was millions of dollars he was spending, but he was spending them. He still lived the simple life, you know, it's a simple life. He got that mansion in Detroit. It's famous, you know, how he was able to get it. It was actually an incredible man, worth millions. But they got it for like $300,000. And Ambarish, he helped, and Leka Shravanti, you know. So, this is it. I've got my place now. I'll just stay here. No, then he just flew off to Nairobi or somewhere, you know, then they keep preaching. He never took advantage or felt the impetus that he take advantage of all of these things. He was always pushing, and for an elderly man like that in failing health, tremendous austerity, all for the sake of preaching. It's just like, this is almost Christmas, right? So that's what is the story of Christmas. You know, we have Jesus Christ who sacrificed everything for preaching God consciousness. He wouldn't compromise. And they want me to give I think it's in for the Columbus Yatra. They give a talk on Christmas Day. And they said, well, let me look up Christmas spirit. What is the Christmas spirit? And it was like, goodwill toward men and hope and charity and all of these. I said, well, that's what we do every day. Working for the benefit of others and trying to give good cheer, kirtan, prasadam. So I'm going to say, I'd like to talk on the Christmas spirit, the Hare Krishna movement, the Christmas spirit every day of the year. Spreading Christmas. So that's that. So surrender, Rakshita Vishwaso Gopradve, and that life in the ashram is meant to be like that. You're depending on Krishna, and you're focusing on the most important thing in life, which is to develop your consciousness of Krishna moment by moment, more and more. And then the last two ones are Atmanikshepa Karpanye, being to have no interest separate from the Lord, and to remain meek and humble. This is the 6 elements of surrender. So it doesn't come automatically because we're so invested in the false ego for lifetimes. So there's a process that, which is the most important part of it is we sing every morning. Guru Mokha Padma Vaka Chitte Te Koriya Aika Arna Koriya Manayasha. To accept the words emanating from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master as one's life and soul, and to not desire other words, So to take Prabhupada's words in his books and as being transmitted, as this is really how I'm going to guide my life. This is the guidance from how I'm going to live. And the more that we can know those words and accept that, and it's the same when Krishna speaks here, Prabhupada's just repeating it, he's the same thing. Then that's will help us come to that full Sharanagati, or surrender mode. Hare Krishna. Vijay Krishna.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're very kind. The quote from the purport is as follows.
Which verse, purport?
64.
Okay.
Quote, this essence is not understood by a common man, but by one who is actually very dear to Krishna, a pure devotee of Krishna, end quote. So my question is, in the context of this quote, what are the symptoms of a common man?
Well, the common man is one who is fully in Maya and bewildered. And to such a person, the instructions of Krishna in this book are a mystery, or irrelevant, or bewildering at least. In other words, the false ego, the sense of separateness from Krishna, which is illusory, all of that puts static between Krishna's message and our ability to understand. We tend to forget how rare it is to read Krishna's words or hear Krishna's words, or that without that static, or at least not 95% of it gone. But that's a very difficult thing. Just like the very existence of God for many people is, they just reject it. They said that's outmoded. We don't need God anymore. We've got technology. Or I used to believe in God, but then my girlfriend left me. I mean, whatever. Some trauma. Right? Didn't we hear that? Someone's going through so much pain, psychic pain. Because it's true. It happens. The more you're attached to something, when it's taken away, it's devastating. That's what the common man. This common man. You have to have some mercy, some good fortune, or some agyata sukriti from previous life to be able even to begin to accept the message of Krishna. That's why this book distribution is so important and so amazing, frankly, to me. How so it can happen. It's really another evidence that Krishna is really there in the heart as the Supersoul. Because here's the people going from point A to point B, and the last thing in the world they expect is that someone's going to approach them with a book of spiritual knowledge from 5,000 years ago, whatever. It's just not on the radar. But within the interaction, there's something that happens, And I've been pointing out these wonderful readings in the morning we have from this book, The Nectar of Book Distribution. It's the devotee who's somehow touching the heart of the person, and the Supersoul from within the person is responding, and there's a desire, there's a curiosity, there's an interest enough to take the book and hopefully read it, at least begin to read it. So that's the how a common man can become uncommon, is by contacting or getting the blessings of Krishna or Krishna's representative, and responding favorably, and beginning the process of purification. It's really a question of purification. The common man was so impure that it doesn't, the essence of, which is simply the next verse, which we hopefully can read. Simply think of me, become my devotee, offer your homage to me, worship me, and then you'll certainly come to me. That essence it cannot be understood. Now, there are various other parts of the philosophy that can be understood. At the beginning of the Gita, way back in the second chapter, Krishna begins his instruction, and the third verse, Dehinosmin yata dehe, komaram yovanang jana. That verse is meant for the common man, for anyone. How you can understand without too much, you don't really have to have faith, you just have to have a little patience. That, yes, I've been changing, my body's been changing from when I can remember, my first memory till now. Everyone can understand that. I'm the same person, but the body is constantly changing. So what is it, who is the real person, the body or the person who knows the body? So you can see, the only thing that hasn't changed is you, the knower. You've been you knower when you're 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. The same knower is there. So that's the beginning of knowledge, and it's a wonderful thing. Prabhupada he would use that when he would speak to children sometimes. Where this is your hand, right? You have this, my hand. This is my knee. This is my head. And where were you? And the kids would, right? You are the one who knows these, And that's good insight. And it can lead to we're already transmigrating through this body. And then there's the leap, yes, and it doesn't end when the body finally breaks down. You continue to transmigrate through another body. That, of course, we have to take on faith. But the idea of transmigration can be understood just by a little insight. But someone has to have the patience, to give you that lesson. So anyway, that's the common man. But one who is actually very dear to Krishna, pure devotee, but it's understood one who is actually very dear to Krishna, pure devotee of Krishna. So in truth, we're all dear to Krishna, but one who has realized that relationship, then it's second nature. This idea that one should always think of Krishna. The great devotees, they can't forget Krishna. There's verses, in the higher realms with Radharani and the gopis, where they're disappointed Krishna didn't come to the rendezvous. All right, enough. Let's not talk about Krishna anymore. It's just so painful. Yeah. Kimi hikunamakasya bruma kutum katamasya katayatakatam anyandanya mahodidiyeshya morora morora smera kare manona yanotsave kripana kripana krishna trishna chidambadalambade. That's a verse in the Prabhupada's books. I don't know if it's ever been cited before in a class, maybe. So I think Radharani is saying to one of her friends, whatever we've done in order to try to meet Krishna, let's be finished with it now. Enough. Say something auspicious, but don't speak about Krishna, okay? It's just too painful. But then she says, then she says, Marura Marura Smera Kari, but that sweet, sweet form of Krishna, I can't forget it. The Smera Kari, Manona Yanotsave, which is a festival for my mind and eyes. And then she says, Marura Marura Smera Kari, Manona Yanotsave. Now I forget the last line, but it says this wretched, desire to meet Krishna just increases more and more. So this is the far end, of Krishna consciousness, where Krishna will not leave your mind. You can't forget him in any circumstance, because he's so attractive and the bond of love is so great. So that person can very easily understand this instruction. Always think of it, But the whole idea in the Krishna consciousness movement is to bring ourselves and others with us to the point of being able be receptive to the orders of Krishna, and welcome them, and say, oh, Krishna is so kind. He wants me to do another service. Let me jump and do it. That spontaneous attraction is highly coveted, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, can we read the essential verse?
Yes, Prabhu, better than okay. Allow me to use a different adjective in order to qualify the answer you just gave to my question. Outstanding answer to my question. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Glory to Prabhupada. All right, here we go. Text 65. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pradijane priyosi me. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Purport. The most confidential part of knowledge is that one should become a pure devotee of Krishna and always think of him and act for him. One should not become an official meditator. Life should be so molded that one will always have the chance to think of Krishna. One should always act in such a way sorry. Excuse me. Okay. One should always act in such a way that all his daily activities are in connection with Krishna. He should arrange his life in such a way that throughout the 24 hours he cannot but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who is in such pure Krishna consciousness will certainly return to the abode of Krishna, where he will be engaged in the association of Krishna face to face. This most confidential part of knowledge is spoken to Arjuna because he is the dear friend of Krishna. Everyone who follows the path of Arjuna can become a dear friend to Krishna and obtain the same perfection as Arjuna. These words stress that one should concentrate his mind upon Krishna, the very form with two hands carrying a flute, the bluish boy with a beautiful face and peacock feathers in his hair. There are descriptions of Krishna found in the Brahma Samhita and other literatures. One should fix his mind on this original form of Godhead, Krishna. One should not even divert his attention to other forms of the Lord. The Lord has multi-forms as Vishnu, Narayan, Rama, Varaha, etc. But a devotee should concentrate his mind on the form that was present before Arjuna. Concentration of the mind on the form of Krishna constitutes the most confidential part of knowledge. And this is disclosed to Arjuna because Arjuna is the most dear friend of Krishna's. So there it is. It's all working up to this. Yes?
Disturbed the class, but is it like this form right here? The one in the front of the book?
Well, he did mention the flute.
Okay. Because
So
like
it's
there's
not that
different.
you-
There's also different artwork. So I'm like thinking like, you pick a different.
What Prabhupada is saying here is that for Gaudiya Vaishnavas especially, we want to go to Goloka Vrindavan. You know, there are various levels of Vaikuntha. There's Vaikuntha, you know, there's so many planets where the Lord is present there in his forearm. Forearm is Narayan, and all of the servants, they also have forearms, but they recognize Narayan as the Supreme Personality, and they're happy in that dasya ras, that awe and reverence mood. But the Gaudiya followers of Lord Chaitanya aim for the upper three rasas, the Sakya, or Vatsalya, or especially Madhurya. And that all involves Krishna in Vrindavan, playing with his boys, with his boyfriends, out in the, you know, the flute is there, you know. And of course, with his mother and father, all those wonderful intimate pastimes, most attractive, stealing the butter, running from his mother. I was reading this wonderful book, which is all available now, called the Gopal Champu. I don't know, you know what the Gopal Champu is? Okay, so now remember. This is a book by Jiva Goswami, all about Krishna's Leela in Vrindavan and in Dwarka. But it expands on the Bhagavatam. Like I was reading yesterday where Krishna's, the whole Damodar Leela. But there's so much more intricacies, you know, how, what happened after he pulled down those two trees, you know, the Arjuna trees. And that, anyway, I won't go into detail, we don't have time. But he expands on it. There's all these wonderful details. And that adds to the attraction. It adds to the substance that you have to remember Krishna by. And so that's one of the things that the Goswamis did. They gave us ways of remembering Krishna, like these wild slokas you hear me slating all the time, you know. Uradi kutamodadi tatabangam nabajadatakidano sadangam hubadipadahetatambananatadangam panamatihamanatatikitadangam. They're the most aesthetically pleasing, you know, language that you can imagine. And it's all about Krishna. His flute emanates entrancing sounds for the girls whose love for him abounds. His flute emanates entrancing sounds for the girls whose love for him abounds. Bow down to the cloud-complexioned Lord who's dancing upon the Kalindi shore. Just a wonderful meditation on Krishna. And they expanded so much. I was just reading the Anta Leela. You read the first chapter alone. He has Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. Rupa Goswami is writing these two plays, you know. And there's some wonderful excerpts, examples of verses from there. Anyway, it's a wonderful pastime. Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, Lord Chaitanya, and I think Sarvabhauma is there. They're in Puri, and they go and they ask him, what kind of drama are you writing? Because there's all these rules, you know, for writing Sanskrit drama at High Moon. He's following all those, and then he gives expression of the holy name. And every verse is just exquisitely composed, and Lord Chaitanya feels ecstasy, you know, and everyone's just hearing it. So that's manmana, you know, thinking of Krishna. That can be expanded to the point where you can't forget him. You don't want to forget him. You wouldn't dream of forgetting his lotus feet even for a split second. That's in the 11th canto. I don't have time to go through it next time we meet. You know, and describing how Krishna never leaves the heart of such a devotee because he's tied Krishna's lotus feet there with the ropes of love. You know, pranaya prashaniya tatang vipadma. You know, so that's our natural state. That's the original state of the living entity, of completely identifying with Krishna, thinking of him all the time, feeling separation and meeting, and all of these varieties of ecstatic emotions. That's what the high bhakti is all about. So that's where we want to go.
Hare Krishna.
Hi, Bal.
Hi, Dravida Prabhu. It's Michelle. I had a question. It's kind of funny. Someone suggested that I was a fanatic for Krishna today. And I said, maybe that's a compliment, but I want to ask your opinion based on the text today, too. Isn't it right that we're supposed to be kind of obsessed with Krishna at all times, thinking of him? Or is that wrong?
We should always be thinking of him. Yes.
Yeah.
But we want to always be checking that we don't, that is supported in the literature. That
right.
How we're doing it. We're not getting off into the sahajiya mode and things like that. So absolutely, you know, if anyone's thinking saying you're thinking of Krishna too much, they're in Maya, and you're doing the right thing. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.